everybody, how's it going? I recently had a question from somebody, and it's not the first time I've had this question asked, and they're great questions, so I thought I'd make a quick video about it. Question number one is, does it matter what time of day you train? And number two is, if I'm doing my cardio and my weightlifting at the same time, does it matter what order I do them in? Like I said, I get that question quite often. It's a great question, and there's been some studies done. The most recent studies are by Kuzma-Schilt et al., and they were done in 2016 and 2017, and they actually were two papers combined into one study that looked at this. So first thing to recognize, though, is there is a term called chronotype, and a chronotype is an individual's tendency to go to sleep and feel most energetic in the morning, for example, or sometimes those people are referred to as morning people, and then there's the folks that are kind of the night owls that feel better overall when they stay up later and they sleep in during the day. So the chronotype issue was actually taken into consideration during these studies. The individuals that they found for these studies didn't have a significant tendency to either be a morning person or an evening person. So they did take that into consideration when looking at this. So what they did is they divided these folks up into 4 groups, and they put them through a 24-week program. 2 of the groups were morning workout people, and they did their workouts between 6:30 and 10 o'clock in the morning. They broke these 2 groups down into a strength before cardio group, and then the other group was a cardio before strength training group. And then they did the same thing with an evening group, evening being between 4:30 and 8 o'clock in the evening. And again, they had one group that was doing strength before cardio and the other group that did cardio before strength. So when they broke these guys down and the ladies down into their groups, their strength training was very structured. It consisted of a strength endurance block, followed by a hypertrophy block, followed by a heavy strength block. And then the aerobic training was a combination of steady state cardio and interval training. Not going to bore you with all the details of the study. It was done very, very well, very, very controlled. Like I said, over 24 weeks, which is actually a really long study when compared to the lengths of some of the other studies that are performed. And what they found, some things were sort of in line with what the researchers hypothesized, and some of them were not. So what they found generally was that strength gains were not really specific to the time of day. Physiologically, people are naturally stronger in the afternoon and the evening, but what they found was that when individuals participated in a strength training program in the morning, their bodies were eventually able to adapt, and they performed just as well with strength training in the morning as they may have originally felt better doing strength training in the evening. So strength was not specific to the time of day in this study is what they found. However, when I talk to folks and they're asking me if they should do cardio first or weight training first, it's not a cut and dry simple answer. It depends on what your goals are. And strength versus aerobic training are to a degree impacted by order. So what they found was that the folks that did the aerobic conditioning training first before their strength training had a much greater increase in aerobic performance and less increase in strength. And the people who did strength training first before their aerobic training had less of an increase in their aerobic capacity, but they had a greater increase in strength, more specifically during the first 12 weeks. So what that leans us towards is whatever your goal is what you should focus on. So if your goal, for example, is better aerobic endurance, then it makes sense to do your aerobic training before your strength training because that's when you're fresh. Conversely, if you are more interested in strength and hypertrophy, you need to do your strength training, your weight training first, and then your aerobic training second. Not a huge surprise there. That's kind of what I've been telling folks to do when they're asking me about it, but this study actually addressed that and supports that information. order of impact didn't really seem to affect the hypertrophy overall. What they did find out was that the groups that trained in the afternoon and the evening did have greater size results than the folks that trained in the morning. And again, that just boils down to physiology and hormone levels and things like that. So I don't want to get too far into the weeds. I just wanted to address this real quick. So all that being said, most of us simply train when we can. We don't always get to choose when we get to train. But recognize from this study that whether you train in the morning or whether you train in the evening, you're still going to gain size, you're still going to gain strength, you're still going to improve your aerobic conditioning. The biggest takeaway for me from these two studies is the question of, if I have to train my aerobic and my weight training at the same time, which do I do first? And quite simply stated, it depends. What is your goal? If your goal is to improve your aerobic conditioning more so than your strength and your size, then it makes sense to do your aerobic conditioning first while you're fresh. If your goal is to gain strength and size primarily over your aerobic capacity, then it makes sense to lift weights when you're fresh and then reserve your aerobic conditioning for following your weight training. Ideally, there's some other studies that say, when you're doing weight training and aerobic training at the same time, one takes away from the other because you can't ride two horses with one ass. And so ideally you want to break your weight training sessions away from your aerobic sessions. Other days work well, but if you have to do them at the same time, hopefully this information gives you a little bit of an idea on how to organize your workout. So appreciate you guys watching. If you have any questions, give me a note and we'll see what we can do to help you out. Have a great day.